So this is Chapter 13, Oral Biofilms. A microbe is any bacteria that are harmful and pathogenic. It refers to bacteria, fungi, protozoa, viruses. One human mouth is home to more microorganisms than there are people on the planet Earth. So the characteristics of bacteria, they're simple. There are thousands of different kinds, but most of them are not harmful to us. They've existed a long time. They can replicate quickly. Most important to know, bacteria can replicate really quickly. So let's talk about the structure of the bacterial cell envelope or bacterial cell wall. It's a complex, multi-layered structure that protects a microorganism from unpredictable and inhospitable external environment. So for a microorganism to survive against like antibiotics and antibacterial things, it has to be able to survive it by being protected from it. And the wall can be either, or the envelope can be either gram-positive or gram-negative. So gram-positive bacteria stain purple. They're single, thick, multi-layered mesh-like cell wall. So they have one cell wall. It's composed of sugars and amino acids, and it lies above the cytoplasmic membrane that faces the interior wall of the cell. Your gram-negative stains red, and it has two membranes. It has an outer membrane that faces the external environment, and it's composed of proteins and lipopolysaccharides. Lipopolysaccharides, or LPSs as we abbreviate them, and you will see them abbreviated that way in future documentation. They are also known as endotoxins. So they are like a destructive substance that sits on the outside of the cell membrane. And when the cell membrane gets disrupted, it releases these endotoxins. The inner membrane faces the inner part of the cell, and sandwiched in between the two of them are a thin layer composed of peptides. This is a picture of a gram-positive bacteria. You see it, notice it's stained purple. It has an outer cell envelope or cell wall. And then this is a picture of a gram-negative, and note it's stained red. This darker red circle right around here is the outer membrane, and then we have the inner membrane, and then we have that in-between peptide layer that sits between the outer layer and the inner layer. So on the surface of this outer layer are where the lipopolysaccharides or endotoxins sit. They also usually have flagella and fimbria or pili, P-I-L-I. The flagella help it move. They are kind of like they sway to help it swim. And the fimbria are for attachment, so it can latch on. They're very social creatures in that they live in complex communities. So biofilm. Biofilm is a complex and dynamic microbial community containing many types of microbial species embedded within a self-protective matrix. The self-protective matrix is extremely important because it's what kind of shields the biofilm from antibiotics or antibacterial rinses. So it kind of acts as a protective layer so that the biofilm or the bacteria stay protected. There are free-floating bacteria that form the biofilm quickly. So the bacteria are floating around freely in the saliva, in the crevicular fluid. Once they attach to the surface, though, they attach pretty quickly within a few minutes. And once they attach to the surface, in about 2 to 4 hours, they form a nice strong bond. So at first, they're just kind of lightly bonded to the surface. After 2 to 4 hours, they're pretty tightly bound. And after 6 to 12 hours, the microbes produce a protective matrix that becomes resistant to antiseptics and antibiotics. So that's its like protective shell. At 2 to 4 days, the fully mature biofilm colonies can rapidly recover from mechanical disruption and reform within 24 hours. So in other words, after the biofilm becomes mature in 2 to 4 days, if you go in and you brush and floss at that point and disrupt it, you can still disrupt the colonies from becoming thicker and more, even more mature. But it'll reform in 24 hours. So the blocking protective matrix prevents large molecules and inflammatory cells from penetrating deeply into the biofilm. So it shields, it acts as a barrier. And those who don't produce their own matrix, because not all bacteria do, the ones that don't are usually protected by the ones that do. So they produce enough of this external protective matrix to protect the ones that can't protect themselves. In quiescence or hibernation, hibernating bacteria are unaffected by antibiotics. So this is a picture of what biofilm looks like, and it's actually almost looks kind of pretty. Biofilm, or in the biofilm, the bacteria maintain a harmonious balance. So they live together harmoniously, they interact together, they stay in balance. So symbiosis is living in harmony. So bacteria live in harmony, and they live in a nice balance. So in other words, A, B, and C are all bacteria, and A, B, and C, no one tries to dominate anyone else. So you have something called resident bacteria or normal flora. Your oral cavity contains bacteria that are considered to be normal, healthy bacteria. And they're healthy because they all live together mutually. And so your body helps to, and your immune system helps to maintain the life of these bacteria because they're healthy bacteria. And as long as they live in symbiosis or harmony, they're okay.